Was he a criminal from the onset? Did he just make some foolish mistakes? Mentally, where was he throughout all this?
Sam he's like the 14-year-old kid that stole the family car.
Hey guys, welcome back to Library of Wealth. Today we have the continuation of the latest interview with Michael Saylor, giving us an update on the collapse of FTX, as well as new information on the inside dealings that went on behind the scenes. Saylor discusses not only the massive fraud that took place with FTX, but how SBF was using customer funds to make moves politically and financially, and falsifying every document needed to advance his agenda in the market. Saylor also discusses Bitcoin and the crypto market, and what other digital assets are being propped up in value but are worth nothing or next to nothing. Let's get right into the latest interview with Michael Saylor on the PBD podcast. If you enjoy the content we do here, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Let's get right into the video.
If he was surrounded by 200 good attorneys and accountants and banking credit managers, then they would know what they don't know, and maybe they could have constructed a company that might have managed this amount of risk.
You're saying he's not smart enough to have conned people? You're saying he did that accidentally, or it was intentional, like knowing what he's doing?
I'm saying that he basically incompetently, foolishly, greedily, enthusiastically pursued what he thought was a good idea, but he didn't have the combination of the real world experience and the ethics and the legal understanding and the banking understanding to even know what he didn't know. So is it criminal? Absolutely, it's criminal. It's not clear to me that Sam understands what he did wrong now. For example, what did he do wrong? There's accounting fraud here. There's basically equity fraud by creating an air token. There's all sorts of credit fraud. There's investor fraud, misrepresenting the equity you sold the investors. There's self-dealing. He issued himself loans. There's front running. There's insider trading. There's wash trading. There's such a litany of ethical and legal lapses. But if you look at all the coverage in the crypto world, they miss the fundamental issue, which is it's illegal and unethical to issue your own air token. I mean, that the entire premise of the industry, an exchange that trades unregistered securities and an issuer of unregistered securities, that fundamentally is unethical everywhere in the world, illegal nearly everywhere in the world.
I have two questions.
And yet they built the business on that premise. On top of that premise, then he inflated the accounting values. He had created an extremely fragile situation where he had one account, Alameda, that had a $10 billion plus margin position backed by Air. And if that Air token, if FTT or Serum, if they had been attacked by anybody, the entire thing goes up like a house of cards. So I think if you look at all the blow-ups, right, Celsius, BlockFi, Do Kwon, Luna, Terra, Three Arrows, Genesis, and FTX, all of them were going to blow up at some point because, like Luna, Terra, it was $20 billion worth of a stable coin backed by $2 billion of real assets, and a $50 billion Luna thing that had $50 million a day of real liquidity. So they were all running on 100x rehypothecated leverage, and they were going to blow up. It's just a question of when they're going to blow up. I think that this is it's a painful deleveraging of the entire industry. But if you look at everybody that was kind of behaving badly, like doing stupid things, like, again, aggressive lending in the real world is 1.4 leverage. That's insanely aggressive lending. These guys were all running at 20x, 10x.
That's insane
leverage.
To me.
So you had a lot of people behaving badly. They were destined to blow up. It might have been held off for a bit, but I have seen pretty credible evidence circulating in the Twitter sphere that Alameda had already taken a $3 to $4 billion loss in 2021 during the bull market. because they were just doing stupid things.
Saylor goes on to say that the level of trust that has been shattered for cryptocurrency is unknown, but he believes that there are many more to follow in succession of FTX's collapse. Sam Bankman-Fried used funds at multiple companies to defraud investors and engage in a pay-to-play for not only personal financial gain, but to reinvest in other crypto assets whose value was also fraudulent.
What was the tipping point when all of a sudden, hey, we got to get
The reason
this
he
guy
got
down?
away with this, he's running a private, unregulated set of companies, right? He had his private holding company, Paperbird. He had Alameda, a private company. He had FTX, a private company. No transparency, no disclosure. If you were running a public company, you got to actually publish audited financials every quarter and make 8K statements, and you have adult supervision. I have lawyers, I have 2 sets of lawyers, 2 sets of accountants. An army of internal accountants, external accountants, etc. And if I just came on your show and said, "Hey, I just wanted to announce that MicroStrategy has 175,000 Bitcoin," my phone would start ringing
By the lawyer.
by the
What are you doing,
time
Michael?
I put that down. They'd be like, "What are you doing? You're
Yeah.
crazy."
Yeah.
And they would say it not just because it's wrong. They would say it because their careers are on the line, and they don't want to spend 10 years in litigation hell. So there's a way that you run a public company, and there's a way you run a regulated company. And on the other hand, Sam was his own regulator. He could make up his own rules. He was accountable to no one. And if you have $10 billion in the bank, and then you lose $4 billion, and you don't, and the bank doesn't have to disclose what it's done with the money, you just go and give yourself a $4 billion loan. I think that FTX, Three Arrows, these companies that went bankrupt, Do Kwon and Luna Terra, they were just really poorly run, opaque crypto organizations. The crypto world is, we invented Solana to be better than Bitcoin, and we invented such and such FTT to be cleaner than Bitcoin, and don't mind the fact that we gave 80% of it to ourselves, right? And that we're going to dump the rest on the general public, and we're opaque about it. Now, that war is going on Capitol Hill, where the crypto lobby is lobbying for light or no regulation. Let us basically issue these tokens and make them commodities, and so we don't have any securities laws constraining us. The regulators that understand better, like a guy like the chair of the SEC, would say, look, they're all securities. You can't just let them trade as commodities. That's the same as saying anybody can issue their own equity and lie, cheat, and steal the general public, and that would threaten the entire $100 trillion securities market. But Sam was the number 2 donor to the Democratic Party. He was the number 3 donor to the Republican Party. They've admitted to $200 million to $300 million in donations, but they might have donated hundreds of millions more.
You're saying that he was donating that much to Republican? We're very familiar with how much he's donated to the Democratic Party. He was, I believe, number 2
He's lobbying.
behind.
He needs both sides.
I tell you, it's diabolical. We know that he was the number 2 donor to the Democratic Party, and
Correct.
until about a month ago, that was the narrative. And then we found out that the chief operating officer that worked for him was the number 3 donor to the Republican Party, and that guy gave $25 million to the Republicans in the last few weeks.
So not he himself,
Gotcha.
because he is fully supportive of what the Democratic beliefs are.
Gotcha.
Look, I mean, he wanted to be viewed as, remember he said he was going to give $1 billion
Yep.
in the next election cycle?
Yep.
Yeah.
He might have given $1 billion in the last election cycle. We don't know. But he wanted to be viewed as the great progressive savior and financier. So they gave hundreds of millions of dollars to celebrities. They gave hundreds of millions of dollars to academic institutions, hundreds of millions of dollars to politicians, huge amounts of money to journalists, right? Why wouldn't you? Keep in mind, if I can generate $10 billion in air token, in order to make $1 billion a year, all I got to do is take $10 million, lever it up 5 to 1, lean on the liquidity on my own exchange, and the price moves $3 or $4. I get $2 billion more. I made $2 billion in the year in investment income, and then I go and I borrow 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 billion in my margin account. Right? They were counterfeiting money, and then they were using the counterfeit money to steal other money, or either to steal it from their depositor, or steal it from their investors, or steal it from creditors. Then they were funneling that into the political and the marketing process. And That's why you saw them on the Super Bowl ad. That's why the FTX arena was named after them. That's why every celebrity is getting sued right now, right? If you can, what business is better than counterfeiting money as a business?
Bankman-Fried resigned as CEO on the same day that FTX, an affiliated trading arm, Alameda Research, filed for bankruptcy. That followed a liquidity crunch stemming from either a crypto version of a bank run or the sudden realization of a massive fraud, with frantic FTX customers making $6 billion in withdrawal requests in a matter of days amid questions over the exchange's solvency. What do you think about the latest interview with Michael Saylor, and how do you think the collapse of FTX will affect Bitcoin and the crypto market as a whole? Comment down below. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Library of Wealth. We'll see you in the next video.